I'm Dr. Nicholson, and I teach in the elementary ed program. A couple of you know me, have seen me around. Some of the courses that I teach are in literacy, reading and writing. And so I was one of the first to volunteer to actually take this foundations test to see what it was like so that I could have a better sense of how to prepare my students and also share what I'm learning with all of you. So I want to welcome you to UNCP today and thank you for being here. And I'm going to try to pack a lot into 3 hours. If you need to get up, there's a restroom just down the hall. We will take a couple of little breaks because I will need to take a break as well. Again, this is being videotaped, so if you see cameras moving, it's because they're trying to capture what's going on in here. It will not be broadcast on YouTube. There will be a link that, and I don't know anything about, giving you that link right now. I don't have that, but that will be a resource for people who couldn't be here today. But it's better if you're here because this is an interactive session. Your questions are what drive what happens today. I have several handouts, and did everybody pick up the handout before you sat down? Okay, so we will get started looking at the yellow sheet. As an agenda for us today, or an overview of what we're going to talk about. And this also has links to things that you are going to need in order to plan for and prepare for the test. And let me just kind of backtrack here. The other thing that I was going to on the UNCP, the home page, as your starting point, I'm going to show you how to get to some of the things that are on here as links. So you go to our home page, then elementary ed, and up here in this little box, there's a link for test prep. And how many of you have already looked at this? And this shows the dates for the sessions that we're doing on Saturdays. There we are today on the 11th. And also, if you scroll down, there are links for some of the things that are on your yellow sheet, and then some other things that are helpful for the other tests. I'm really only aware of the ones that I have put up there that are for the reading portion. But a lot of helpful material at these links, so I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. So, go ahead. All right, so again, I told you that I've taken the test. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what my experience was like taking the test. It would be hard for me to prepare you for something that I didn't have some experience with. So this is, and the first link that you see on your yellow sheet, the question, what test do I take? This is the link for the North Carolina Foundations of Reading and General Curriculum test. How many of you have looked at this, or has anybody taken the test? You both have taken the reading test? Mm-hmm. Okay. I will ask you a little bit about your experience when we talk more about where you took it and what that was like. But this is where you go to register. I'm not going to take you all the way into some of this because I'm not registering right now. But here's what test do I need to take? You don't want to take the wrong test, right? So, and I think if you're here, you know what test you need to take, but that's going to answer that question. Also, test dates and sites, this is where you would go to find out where the test is being offered. So I took the test in Fayetteville. For you two who've taken it, where did you take it?
I took it in Fayetteville, I think at the Acclaim building. I don't know the name of the building, but I took it.
That might be where I took it. It's a
It's
little
offered
testing
on
center.
Saturday. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. How about you?
I took it in Sanford, Central Carolina Community College,
Okay.
and it's a lot much friendlier than going to a testing center.
Okay. and that's what I kind of want to hear about that.
Yes, I have not had good experiences at testing centers here.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating, to say the least, what they put you through. But I want to talk about that because that's part of what you have to mentally prepare for. So again, that's where you go through, how to take or what test to take, how to register for the test, and the cost. And when I created this handout, and when I took the test, it was $155. And my sense is that is that what you paid too? $155?
$139.
Okay. I've heard from some people that it's a little bit different. So
No, that's what I paid, $155.
okay. So somewhere around there, that's what you're expected to pay. So it's a lot of money. So again, you want to be prepared so that you don't have to take it multiple times. Then there's also, and I'm not going to take you to this link, but it says, what can I expect at the testing site? I'll talk to you about my experience, and for those of you who've been through it, that will help us understand what to expect when you get there. So if you've been through airport security, you know that.
I think it's worse at airports.
It is a little bit. It can be worse.
Yes.
So I took the test in the winter. It was four semesters ago. When we first started imposing this test on students, I raised my hand to sign up for it. So, and I'll talk to you about how I prepared once I start, getting into some of these materials. But I studied, and on the morning, my husband drove me up there. I had the reading exam is 4 hours. You have 4 hours. You want to use every minute of your 4 hours. So let me just tell you, there's no reason to hurry or rush. You paid for those 4 hours, and you're going to need all of it. So mentally, I didn't, I felt like I was prepared. I had studied. We had 2 snow days prior to my testing date, and I stayed home both of those days and studied all day for 2 days. And I'll show you what my notes look like, because I'm going to urge you to do something similar. And then it was just like that the cramming that you used to do before you took a big exam. So in the car, I'm reading my notes, and we got there way too early. So I'm still studying. You get into the testing center, and then it's like you go through their security procedures and their check-in procedures. And for me, that involved I had boots on, and I had my winter coat, and I also had a little fleece vest. And I'm telling you this because my little fleece vest was like my little comfy blanket that I was expecting to be able to wear in there, and I had to take that off too. So then I just felt cold and naked. So yeah, what do they make you take off? No watches.
Everything.
Just about everything. You have to turn out your pockets.
Are you serious?
Yep. Yeah. I even had to, when I took my practice there, I had to roll up my sleeves so they could see, like, I didn't have any answers written on my arms. If you wear long sleeves, I mean, it's a.
And again, I had boots that zipped, so I had to unzip my boot,
Show that
there was nothing in my boots. So going through that is a little unnerving.
Wow.
You're trying to be relaxed and just focused, and you just have to go through that. So I just want you to know that that's part of the process.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
It's really hard because I took the praxis and I did all that, and when the guy was going to check my ID, my ID didn't match the name on the test, so he made a huge deal about it.
Yes.
I had to call the praxis people, and they were like, it's up to them.
And that's why you're standing there checking in. This is all.
And it's like, it's up to them to let you take the test or not. It's completely out of our hands. And he didn't let me. And it was the last time I was going to be able to take the praxis. Because the next time, it was October when this test came in. So it was really, really horrible. It was like the worst experience I've ever had in North Carolina since I moved here.
Wow.
So hopefully that won't happen, but hearing that story makes you more conscious of how even a little thing like that.
Yes, like you have to write your name exactly as it is on your driver's license. Otherwise, it's going to be chaotic. Unless you go to a community college where they're friendly.
So if that's an option for a testing site, I would.
Yes, and that was like, because I used to work there, but there was a lady who came to do for her job, she needs to take like a lot of testing. And it was her first time coming to the college. And she was like, I'm never going back to the testing center. I'm coming always here, even if I have to do the day. Because it's not intimidating, they're very friendly. If you need to go to the bathroom, they will let you go to the bathroom.
So that's the other thing, again, with the testing center, and the thing with turning your pockets out, I like to keep a tissue, it's a mom thing, I always have a Kleenex in my pocket. No, you can't have a Kleenex in your pocket, you can't have anything in your pocket, and if you need a tissue, you have to ask to be let out, and then they have to go through the check-in process again. Anytime you go out, they had to check you back in. I didn't go out. I mean, I got a drink, I did everything I needed to do, and I just barreled through my 4-hour test.
It's very different. Community colleges and this is the only one they offer at the community colleges, the foundation of reading.
And that
The other ones,
is that Sanford?
the other ones, they have to be done in a testing center, which I'm not looking forward to.
Where was that one again?
Central Carolina Community College.
Is that Sanford? Okay.
Sanford.
Do they do them at Fayetteville State? Do they do any of these at Fayetteville State?
This is Fayetteville State. They're talking about the testing center.
No, it wasn't on campus.
Oh.
The one I went to was some other kind of testing center.
No.
I
they have
tested
like-
at
they
Fayetteville
have like
State, and that was
buildings- no.
it was a good experience.
It was.
Yeah, no,
It
they have
was when I
like
took
these
my
testing
practice.
centers
They
that are
all
all
did the
over.
one thing. And
Was
yeah,
this
they had
downtown?
everything. I
Okay,
was like,
I've
no,
taken-
he patted me down. I went in and took my test. It was simple there.
I mean, they were friendly, but it was just the protocols were really.
Was that downtown Fayetteville?
It's I just don't know if Fayetteville well at all, but there's a public library that's next door.
Is it a Novatech?
It's in
It's a Novatech because you have the library and then there's like
Yes.
a Taco Bell.
That's it.
I was just telling her about it.
Where is that?
It's on Cliffdale Road.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, that's not downtown.
Carol took me up there, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
You were just along for the ride. You were studying.
I was gonna.
It's
Stress.
different when you
Yeah.
you
might
go
not
to
do
had to go there
college.
too.
No, I was going to because I was looking at places close to me.
Just one other thing that I just thought of this, so they did give us all a little whiteboard and a marker, because there are times where you need to organize your thinking and maybe make some notes. Well, I didn't think to check if my marker was gonna work or not, so there I am at the point where like, I need to, write some things down, and the marker didn't work. I was just pressing, because I didn't want to stop and go out, so, yeah, just weird little things like that you might not think about to check ahead of time. And then they give you noise canceling headphones, which if you wear glasses, that's the most painful thing, the thing compressing your head, so I just listened to other people scratching and everything. I coped with it, but, yeah, so this isn't about preparing for the test, it's about preparing for the experience at the testing site. So that's just a little bit of my experience, just up front there. So now we're gonna spend the rest of our time talking about what you should study and how you should study. And that's where some of these handouts come into play. not leaving anything out here. Go math. Okay, I'm just kind of backtracking a little bit here. On your handout, there's this Go Math. How many of you are familiar with Go Math?
I don't think
Yeah.
Last week she talked about it.
Okay.
A lot.
Try it, but this is the website for this organization called GOAH Academy. They are making money by helping prepare people for these tests. So if you want to attend one of their workshops, they're expensive. Has anybody investigated this or spent their money on it yet?
We just got an email for that. The workshop is actually on discount right now for $199 per session, but normally it's like $299, $399.
That's around 3 is what I've heard for. I have a couple of former students who've taken the math workshop. They are helpful, and these folks have some inside information about how things get scored at Pearson, and I don't have the inside scoop. But I've taken the test. But the Go Math people, again, it's money well spent if you can afford it. Most of our students can't manage this. But the good thing, you don't necessarily have to sign up for the test to benefit from some of their resources. So,
And my school district is treating it like you're taking the praxis, and they're gonna reimburse you if you choose to go to this workshop.
well, that's good to
So
hear.
I don't know if your school district may do the same thing.
What district are you?
Hope County.
I don't know about Comprehension County.
So I'll talk to you about how I used the information on here. Actually, Dr. Ficklin and I tried to sign up for one of and we were going to pay good money, good paying customers. But somehow, either inadvertently or somehow, they got wind of the fact that we were both professors and that we might use whatever we learned from them to help our students. So they canceled our applications, they said, or our registrations, and they said, no, you can't come to these. So, I mean, me wanting to be subversive, I'm like, well, I'll just create an alias and I'll go anyway. I didn't do that. I probably would have gotten caught or gotten in trouble or gotten fired, who knows what. But that kind of burns me that, we're paying the money. So, but it's their intellectual property, so they're protecting it. But nevertheless, you can use some things that are on here that are really beneficial. So again, this is the link to the one that's related to reading. And what they have here is all these terms. There are 100 terms that they list here that relate to literacy, and there are things that are likely to be on the test that you take. Not everything on here is on the test, but everything that any kind of a term like that that's on the test is also up here. So this was my starting point to prepare for the test. To actually, when I sat down to study, I had some of the practice materials, and then I had this list. And I have heard from folks who've prepared this way and been to this workshop that this was helpful. So I'm going to continue to talk about that. So what I brought, this represents how I started studying using that list of terms. And so on those 2 snow days when I sat home working, I wrote down each term. Each one is highlighted here. And I wrote down definitions for things, examples of things, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. But and there were some things that I didn't need to look up because I just knew what those things were because this is what I do. I teach literacy courses. But some of these things I haven't thought about or taught about or had, any connection to in a long time. So I needed to do this. This was necessary. Regardless of how much education I have, I needed to do this.
So you just click on the term and it will give you
Yeah,
information.
and that's. So we'll just start with, and that's why you don't have to do the legwork, 'cause they've already done it, so.
It won't do it
Phonological
with all
awareness.
of them, though.
Pardon?
It won't do it with all of them. Some of
No,
the words.
not all of them, this is true.
Yeah.
There are some things, and then you just Google it and
Yes.
figure it out. But yeah, so phonological awareness, there's a definition there. It's a broad skill that includes identifying, manipulating, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I'll just click on another random one there. Rhyme, onsets and rhymes. So you can see what somebody's done is just kind of done the Google searching for you, which makes it much more user-friendly. So the process of just, blocking out some time and sitting and going through this process, there's no substitution for doing this. Because then when you take the practice test, and then you come across a word like phonemic awareness, and you're like, okay, I'm just looking at my notes. Yes. Phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. Which when I'm talking to my students, I'm like, they're the same thing. But on this test, there are these subtle differences that even I can't explain how they're thinking about it is different than how I am. So, the first time I did this workshop, I didn't have all these school teachers. I just had our interns that semester who were supposed to come to the workshop. And that was an interesting group because they kind of sat in the back and didn't pay much attention to anything I was talking about. And at the end of it, they said, well, you're going to give us your notes, aren't you?
What?
No, honey, I'm not going to give you my notes. So it was just kind of going whoosh, because I guess they thought I was going to say, here's what you need to pass the test. And it just doesn't work that way. It's actually going through this process that helped me learn what I needed to and prepare for the test, not just staring at a page that someone copied for me.
Right.
So I'm glad to hear you. So no one gets these notes. These notes are like gold. So knowing that this is an important part of the process, I'm just gonna. Okay. And okay, let's talk about the practice.
I'm more hands-on,
So I didn't, this is a huge document, 69 pages. Obviously I didn't copy this for you. And what's the first thing you notice that's maybe strange on the?
Well, it says
It
Massachusetts.
says Massachusetts. It does not say North Carolina. When I first started doing this workshop, North Carolina didn't have a practice test yet. Because we were telling teachers that they needed to take this, and North Carolina, typically, we just jump on the wagon without thinking about how we need to get there. So this is the practice test that Massachusetts had put out there. So it's the same. It's the same test. And so rather than me photocopy or scan a North Carolina practice test, I continue to use this. So all the materials that you have, all these handouts, are related to this Massachusetts, why is that so hard? Massachusetts practice test. You are not at a disadvantage for using the Massachusetts test to prepare because the North Carolina North Carolina one is so similar that I think all we did is just slap our name on it, and there's really no difference. And continuously I get feedback from folks who have taken the test, because I want to know, is what I'm doing here helpful? Am I on the right track? And I'm hearing yes, especially for the open-ended questions that we will talk about during the last hour. I've been told by everybody who's taken the reading test, yes, Dr. Nicholson, they are almost exactly like the ones on the practice test. So we're going to continue to use Massachusetts. It's easy, and it's really basically the same thing. So let's scroll down here a little bit. And we'll grab the handouts to show you where this stuff is coming from. So one of the things that I copied, and let's try to go in order. So I had things out here in order that we're going to talk about them or need them. The first one, it shows the foundations of reading with a little globe thing. And this, again, this is this might have been a separate document. Well, let's look at the test objectives. Because the back of the first page there, it's like this, Foundations of Reading Text Design. This shows how the test is organized. So it's they're all multiple choice until you get to the two open response. But this is how the test is laid out. So the first section of those multiple choice questions is called Foundations of Reading Development. So that is primarily focused on what happens with emergent literacy in the primary grades. There's a lot in there about like kindergarten age. It's really heavy on questions that are related to that part of reading development. So about 35% of the test is on that. The second sub-area that they call it is development of reading comprehension, and that's about 27%. And then that third section is reading assessment and instruction, 18%. So 80% of the test is multiple choice. And we're going to go through quite a few practice ones together to see what that is like. You can't zip through this test. Again, when I say you need 4 hours, each one of these questions requires a lot of thinking and eliminating, okay, this one could make sense, but maybe this one, that's what makes this hard. And sometimes the more you know, the more experience you have, makes it harder for you because you can rationally, say, oh, well, this wouldn't make sense. So I'm sure I got things wrong. I did pass the test. I don't remember the score, but I was just happy. I passed it. But I'm sure there are things that I got wrong that I could argue all day that, I had the right answer, but it doesn't really matter. It's wrong. And then the open responses are, again, 20%. And
How many test questions are there in the multiple?
100.
100.
And, no one asked this, but you're maybe thinking, but so can you skip something and go back to it? The answer is yes. And I don't really remember, like if you could flag it or how but there's some way.
You can put a it's kind of like a flag, and you can just mark the ones that you want to go back to check. Just because you were not sure, and before you submit, you get a chance to review the test.
Yeah. So again, take the time to do whatever you need to do. Okay, so that's one thing that I just wanted you to be aware of, how the test is laid out. And then just looking through this little introductory piece here, the test objectives. And this is gonna help you know what to study, understanding phonological and phonemic awareness. If I don't even know what those two terms are, what do I need already? So, and maybe you would go through a different process, but for me, before I could even take this practice test, I needed to have something to help me answer those questions. And I don't know, maybe Dr. Ficklin suggested you take the practice test first, just do a dry run with it. Did she talk about that last week?
She didn't say
She
do a
did.
dry
She did.
She did.
talked about it. She didn't say do a dry run.
She said don't do a dry
She
run.
said do like open notes first,
Yeah.
you know, like have all your notes written
Yeah.
first,
Kind of
then
be
take
me.
it,
You know?
see how you do with your notes, then do it another time without your notes, see how you do if you're not
So
doing well,
that
just
might work
yeah.
for you.
Mhm.
For me, that makes me nervous. Like,
Yeah.
I want to
I want to
be
study first.
prepared
Mhm.
before I don't want to just do a dry run and I would be overwhelmed and I would think, I don't know anything, I'm just gonna fail. So don't do that to yourself. So do whatever you need to do so that you feel like you're on the right track. Okay, so again, understanding concepts of print, alphabetic principle, and you look through there. And again, there's just all of these terms that you're gonna have to be aware of. Turning the page, we've got understand the role of phonics in promoting reading development. Are you already just getting sick of seeing the word phonics everywhere? It just hits you over the head with it left and right. I think part of that is because it's a Pearson test, and in the ideal magical world of Pearson, and here's where I'll get in trouble. You would first buy all the Pearson. Well, before you even get to that point, in your college courses, you would have Pearson, and then you would have Pearson prep materials, and so who's getting the money? Pearson. So I refer to them as the evil empire. Welcome. Hey, please, before you get settled, if you could sign in and take one of each of the handouts.
Yeah, it is interesting.
So, yeah, that's just a little food for thought. You are all smart people, and you can, the old adage of, follow the money, and that tells you how the decisions are given. So vocabulary development, and we're just gonna kind of have to jump in with us. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
And the comprehension, reading assessment and instruction, and then the last page, the integration of knowledge and understanding. That's the two open-ended response ones. And again, we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about those, because those are the two pieces that studying without some guidance is not going to be as helpful. So I'm going to give you as much guidance as I can. Okay. So set that handout aside. That's an overview. We're going to start looking at the actual practice test, the questions on the test, and the next thing that you're going to need is your answer sheet. I would say take another sheet and cover up the column that says correct response. That way it won't seem like there's some smarty pants in here who knows all this. We're gonna struggle through these together. tested on here. There it is. So again, if you're on the UNCP elementary ed, this practice test here is the one that we're going to be looking at. Go back to that.
English language learning.
All right. And they give us a little sample question, so let's look at that together.
Phonological awareness.
Of course, your questions are going to be harder. So here's the sample question. What is the capital of Massachusetts? And they show us it in there. So that's just to, your questions aren't going to be simple like that, though. They're going to be.
No. If only.
And so this is the same answer sheet that you have that I copied out for you. And we're going to start with number 1 here. And this is where you guys will kind of give me some guidance of how much time we need to spend on it. So, right from the get-go, we need 2 terms, and we need those to be defined. So, again, I can't do this practice test without my notes, so I'll help you out a little bit. Let's think about this. Which of the following students is demonstrating the specific type of phonological awareness known as phonemic awareness? So, we're going to start by just eliminating anything that doesn't seem to make sense to you. Those are my first 2 definitions that I have on my sheet. So listen to them. Phonological awareness is the ability to hear sounds that make up words in spoken language. Phonemic awareness is basically the same thing. And then what I wrote down for my notes is that a phoneme is the smallest unit of sound in a language that holds meaning. So like the word ball has 3 phonemes. What would those be? Okay. So that might help us answer this. So a student, after being shown a letter of the alphabet, can orally identify its corresponding sounds. Or B, a student who listens to the words sing, ring, fling, and hang and can identify that hang is different. C, a student who, after hearing the word hat, can orally identify that it ends with the sound T. A student who listens to the word Massachusetts and can determine that it contains 4 syllables. Which one can we get rid of right away?
D.
D, B.
So then what is your thinking?
That he can identify.
T.
It's C because they have to identify a specific
Sound.
sound in a word.
Sound.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I think it's C.
it is C.
I said it was C because of the hat.
So, but right from the get-go, is this gonna be tricky?
Yes.
I'm gonna lie and say that this
They're giving you a couple that might work.
is, there you go. So, all right, well, let's,
That website that she had again? Yeah, but the North one, North Carolina. I actually have.
let's do number 4. Because there's more terms here that we have to know. What terms are we gonna have to know to answer number 4?
Phonogram.
is-
Phonogram. Onset rhyme.
Someday out here. So a phonogram is a grapheme, which means a written character. So already, even just to understand what a phonogram is, we have to know what a grapheme is. So a phonogram is a grapheme which represents a phoneme. For example, this is where I use the board a little bit. What sound does that represent in the word high? IGH is what sound? I, right? Which I have another example. So this IGH is a phonogram that represents the sound I in the word high. So now that you're all confused, we're gonna try to. The ability to divide words containing major phonograms into onsets and rhymes So what else do we need to know? What's an onset?
The
Sound.
beginning
Sound.
sound.
And I have,
And rhyme.
and the rhyme is the. But if we understand that, I don't need to. The rhyme, so like the word, oh, here it is. For the word sit, the onset is the sounds that come before the first vowel. So what would the onset be?
Is.
And the rhyme is the first vowel in the word, so it would be this. So that's the onset, the rhyme. Again, just to answer this question. Mm-hmm. So our choices are A, itch, B, girl, C, learn, D, stick.
What's the question again?
The ability to divide words containing major phonograms into onsets and rhymes would best help a first grade reader decode which of the following words.
I guess, is it A?
You want to zoom into the page, maybe?
B and C are.
On the right, if you go over, it should give you a plus sign, because that's what I did on mine.
Right?
I think
Right there, click it, it goes up twice. You can go up again. I don't know.
because the
sorry, I
B and C one has
I'm up here.
R
Where I can see.
consonant.
Which question is
I need to.
On the forward.
Yeah, I would say B.
Well, the answer is D.
D.
Stick.
Oh, the major phonogram.
Ick.
So,
I.
So it can't be A because there's nothing
There's no
preceding that first vowel.
Or no major phonogram.
Yeah.
Okay, so B A.
So it has to be stick.
So I was thinking B or D.
so why is
Is the major
B
phonogram.
That makes sense.
No letter to C T.
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, I just, this isn't, I teach reading, but I don't.
Because I know when I took the test, besides having a migraine, like there were so many possible options. It's like a really tricky test.
It's very tricky.
And I was frustrated because I studied for the test, and now that I've been teaching for almost like for a whole semester, I feel like I'm a little bit more prepared. But then I look at the questions and I look at the answer and I'm going like, okay, so maybe I'm not. So I don't know, it's kind of frustrating.
Well, that's not a fun one, but.
Well, I think too, we have to look at the ability to divide the words. So itch doesn't really divide, it
No.
sounds like one sound. So that's why we wouldn't choose A. Is that right?
That makes sense to me.
But then D, stick, ick. But then B and C both have that rule about that R consonant sound.
Oh, the controlled R.
Yes.
We'll talk about that too.
Well, that makes sense.
And I just
If it-
None of them can be
onset,
separated like
right.
that, can
Yeah,
they?
None of them can be separated
Right.
like that.
Yes.
The only one with the
But
major
each
phonogram.
has-
And then part of it is to like, to continue to
On
read
the
the
UNCP
question,
website,
because the idea of dividing
go
words.
over
Yes. Ick.
when you're on the homepage.
If
I want
I had a
to click.
first grader, I would just say the word stick and he would learn to read the word stick. I wouldn't go.
And I went to elementary education.
We're gonna have to, we've already used
And
the
then
whole
I went
hour.
to test prep. And all that stuff she had up there was up
So
there.
dividing is the key word.
And we can't do all of these, but we'll do.
And test prep was on
So-
the left.
Number 5, and sometimes there's one that you really like, I know this, and you feel like having a celebration. Number 5 is phonemic awareness contributes most to the development of phonic skills in beginning readers by helping them what? And there again, the concept to me is convoluted, but, so having phonemic awareness, that's understanding that there's sound correspondence with letters. Does it help them recognize different ways in which one sound can be represented in print? Does it help them count the number of syllables in a word? Does it help them identify in spoken language separate sounds that can be mapped to letters, make letters sound match? Or understand the concept of a silent letter? So I'm hearing answers. Is C correct? It is.
Yes.
And what ones can we just easily throw out there?
A silent letter.
Silent letter, syllables.
Syllables that has nothing to do.
So again, you'll kind of go through that process of elimination for a lot of these too. Number 7 looks like a good one. Let's do that one too. Asking students to listen to a word, and the example they use is the word same, and then tell the teacher all the sounds in the word is an exercise that would be most appropriate for students who, A, have a relatively low level of phonological awareness, B, are beginning to develop systematic phonic skills, C, have a relatively high level of phonemic awareness, or D, are beginning to master the alphabetic principle. Are there any terms there that you think you need to know in order to answer this?
Alphabetic principle.
So the alphabetic, the alphabetic principle, and again, that's in that list of terms, that's understanding that letters represent sounds which form words. So that's very, very basic understanding. So this is tough because students might, I mean, it could be D, right? What is, I better look up what the actual, it's not D.
I guess naming all the sounds. All the sounds.
Because they have to know which sound represents which letter.
In order to do that exercise, yeah.
So then, my 5-year-old, that's what he's doing, exactly that. We're sounding out words together. You know? Yeah.
So the answer is what? C. You looked at it, it's C.
Okay, I would have gotten that one.
But again, I mean, I can't explain all of the logic that went into this question.
They can tell you which sound that letter makes, or which letter that sound is.
And I wish that I could say that we're just exaggerating the amount of attention they put on phonemic awareness on here, but it's just they can't get enough of it. Let's do number 8, and then we'll jump ahead a little bit. A kindergarten teacher asks a small group of students to repeat after her. Isn't it gender bias? One more complaint. First, she says the word grape, and then pronounces it as grr and ape. Next, she says the word take, and then pronounces it as t and ache. This activity is likely to promote the student's phonemic awareness primarily by helping them recognize distinct syllables in oral language. B. Not A, right? Encouraging them to divide words into onsets and rhymes.
Oh, no, but at least she's doing it. Yeah.
Teaching them how to distinguish between consonants and vowels. Or D. Promoting their awareness of letter sound
correspondence.
I think it's onsets and rhymes.
You're going through the process
B.
of how I would think about this too.
But based on the first question we did,
It is B.
So look at your answer
So
sheet.
encouraging them to divide words into onsets and
It
rhymes.
is B.
So when you know
because
onset,
it kind of like
providing the
relates to
onsets
one of the
and
first questions they had about onsets and rhymes.
you really need to do that to teach kindergartners how to read? Talk about onsets and runs and
I'm trying to find the correlation.
I think it works.
To me, here's my analogy. Like, I can drive my car to get to work and anywhere I need to go.
It works.
Do I need to know what all the parts inside the engine are called, or
Get it dry.
how they put?
Put your can in there.
I know it either runs or it doesn't run. That's kind of how I feel about a lot of this. You know, I can communicate very effectively without, you know, spouting out definitions for all these terms. But this is it's a way to test you, and so it's another hoop we have to jump through.
Is it testing for perseverance or is it testing for true
It's not.
Except if you have a child who's not.
I was getting ready to say, this is a financial situation.
That's where the practice,
You can break
that's
down,
the
but
practice
where is
years
it? They're
go.
not track.
And
Money.
I didn't
Work on that.
have any anxiety over it. It wasn't hard to pass. In fact, the test that I took, I had
Well, I'm talking if you're doing.
literacy graduate program
You can
that
help
I
the child figure it out.
facilitated when I was teaching in West Virginia, and I took the test that my grad students had to take for their reading certification, and it was so much easier than this. And that was a test that, you know, that there was a whole graduate program to prepare you.
Yeah,
But it made sense. It was, and it was a lot of little case studies. What would you do if you had this situation?
So it was applicable to what they were actually, yeah.
but I was wondering why will they only change the testing for elementary school teachers and not for middle school and high school teachers, because they still can take the praxis.
Wait, so this
But
is
in
just-
elementary school, is the only one that they cannot take the praxis is us. We have to take this one now.
Probably because some of these students can't, they go into higher grades and they can't read and they can't reason and
I guess they think
There's
the
too many
teachers.
fifth graders who can't read, there's too many.
the problem with that is it's not the teachers with that. The problem is some of the students don't have the ability to get there. I've got a third grader who is on first grade reading level. That has nothing to do with, I mean, he got to my class somehow.
Right.
So, he got past two teachers and not because they weren't trying, but that's a system-wide issue. That's not the teacher issue. Well, when a child has a developmental incapacity to get to that level because they have a learning disability, it's not parents either necessarily, they just need help. That,
I think because
Yeah.
I teach first grade and I have a lot of students who are still below
Right.
kindergarten reading level.
Oh, yeah.
And so knowing all this is not gonna,
And we
Yeah,
have to
it's not gonna
use
help them.
academic vocabulary with them, and we have to talk about phonemic awareness, and we have to use all this. So we're using this every day in the classroom with them, and they know what it is when they're doing the onset, when they're doing rhyming, and they can use the words. But even my low students can do it, but when it's time for them to put all those
exactly.
blending the words and reading and
Exactly.
reading comprehension,
old way of doing things?
it just doesn't connect for them because they
Well, and think about
What wasn't broken.
so I'm kind of like it's not because we're not good teachers.
I was in school,
Exactly.
everybody knew how to
Why the
But we
state,
are-
nobody knows.
the
how to
state decided to.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. For me, as a teacher, we have so many conversations going on, and everybody has something really good to say.
Yeah.
And I'm new, I wanna learn it all, so can we just please concentrate on one concentration?
In order
Thank you.
for us to get to where I need to be, like within an hour, we're gonna have to look at more questions together. Cause I enjoy this too, and it's very easy for me to get.
No, everybody has so
I
much
know.
good stuff to say, I wanna hear it all.
And it's important, I want everybody to think critically about why we have to take this test, why is the test the way it is, why, I want you to be critical thinkers and leaders in your schools and to be vocal about pushing back against this stuff. We just don't have a lot of power, and we're so used to having everything top down imposed on us, and here's again another hoop that we have to jump through and put out money so that someone else is profiting from all of that, and at the same time knowing that a lot of what we're focusing on isn't helping the young readers that we work with in the classroom. And if we use that driving the car analogy, yeah, I could have you pass a lot of tests on, I could spend all my energy teaching you all the parts of the car and what they do, and you could pass tests on that. But if you've never been in the car and had a purpose for using the car for, you know, an actual, authentic, meaningful purpose, you're not gonna learn to drive the car. And so we maybe will have kids who understand what some of these terms are, but does that mean that they're gonna enjoy reading and writing? No. We've drilled and killed them all, and killed the spirit of the, you know, the reader that's inside there. So.
One thing that I've experienced since I started teaching, I'm brand new. I'm so very brand new. I'm changing career, you know, I'm just new. I have third and fourth, I'm special ed. And just as my special ed students are getting to begin to learn certain things, I'm required to then move to the next standard, because it always gotta have the standard, and I'll have to teach the standard. But from an EC perspective, my whole life career is working with developmentally disabled. They don't learn like that.
No, but
So now I have third and fourth graders in my
general
classroom
education students.
who are on the first and kindergarten level. Because you pass them along, but they're not learning, because they gotta keep meeting the standards.
Yeah.
We all experience.
So
That is so
there's
true.
so much wisdom in this room right here.
But we don't
And
have
then
big books.
and then there's a big sigh because we have to talk about this test. Let's look at one that maybe is a little bit different and doesn't mention phonemic awareness. And so number 15, a preschool teacher. Again, we're 15 questions in here, and what age level kids are we still focused on? Preschool, kindergarten. So again, it's heavily weighted in this section.
You did? That's awesome.
A preschool teacher is reading a story to his class. Bravo for the his. As he reads, he holds the book so the children can see the words and pictures while his finger follows the line of print. This activity would contribute to the children's reading development primarily by A, promoting their development of letter recognition skills. B, helping them recognize phonemes that occur frequently in print. C, developing their awareness of left to right directionality.
Maybe
One
That's
thing,
part
yeah,
of it.
that's part of it.
And or D, promoting their understanding of letter sound correspondence.
I will say C.
Again,
the best answer
So
is
it's just teach them how to
do you
read,
right?
read from left to right.
so what is the answer? I haven't looked at
It's
it.
C.
It is
It is C.
Got to be C.
But this is what I do when I'm reading one-on-one with a child, is that, you know, I am helping make that voice print match by following along. So, again, you can't just read it quickly and say, okay, you just gotta really study each one. Again, that's why it takes so long to take the book. Is there anything, if you're seeing one that you really want me to talk about as I scan, stop me, okay?
Oh,
It's
can you
13,
do 16?
16, okay.
Which one?
16, let's look at that. Pointing out the title, beginning, middle, and end of a book to a group of preschool children before reading the book aloud to them contributes to their reading development primarily by promoting their A, understanding of text directionality. No. B, development of book handling skills.
It could be.
Yeah, that could be that.
C, understanding the concept of schema. You know what schema is. Schema is your background knowledge or prior knowledge, right? Or D, development of literal comprehension strategies.
D.
That should be kind of a no-brainer. They haven't even started reading the book, right?
Right.
What are they just doing? They're just
Handling.
handling it.
It's B.
So what does it say?
B.
Does it say B? Yes.
Let's hope.
I know. We'd go through all
Yeah,
this.
it's B.
Is it B?
And that sounds almost too simple to be right.
I know, that's what I'm telling you, when you get one that like, oh, I know this, then you second guess
Second guess
yourself and you
yourself.
think, oh, maybe it's not as easy as I think it is. 17 or 19? Do you have a preference?
17.
17. Which of the following strategies would be most effective in promoting kindergarten children's ability to recognize and name letters of the alphabet? So they're looking for a strategy that the teacher is going to use. The teacher says the name of a letter while the children trace its shape on a cutout. B, the teacher posts the entire alphabet around the room in several different formats. C, the teacher reads aloud to the children from books that contain mostly words that follow regular phonics patterns. Or D, the teacher emphasizes the initial sounds of words when reading to the children. Which one makes sense then?
To recognize and
name, not necessarily know the sound.
Then it will be A.
Okay. Well, let's look. 17 is A. Okay, good job. But there again, you have to make sure you're on the right track by looking at the picture. Because the teacher is just thinking about recognizing the name of the letter and the shape of the letter.
It's just working it out.
You have to visualize.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I just did. I had to visualize it.
Anything there you want to?
20.
A teacher holds up a series of familiar objects, asking students to name each object and isolate the final sound they hear. This type of activity would be most appropriate for a student who, A, needs more development with phonemic awareness skills, B, needs to increase reading fluency and comprehension. That's no. C, lacks automaticity in word recognition. No. That would be if they were reading text. Has difficulty sounding out phonetically regular one-syllable words. I might hold up something that has more than.
Well, they talk about the final sound they hear.
So D, can we throw D out? C, can we throw C out?
And throw B out.
B out.
A.
So A.
Just say.
Process of elimination will get you that one. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit so we have time for each section. 27 has a lot going on, so let's look at that one. Okay, so now we're moving away from kindergarten and we're in second grade. A second grade teacher writes several sentences on the board, covering up one word in each sentence. Do you know have you ever heard of the cloze procedure, using cloze procedure with students? CLOZE, this is kind of like that. So she uncovers the first letter of the first covered word and asks students to guess the word before she uncovers it completely. She then follows the same procedure with the next sentence. In the example shown below, the students have completed sentences 1 and 2 and are currently working on number 3. So, we see that little box there and we see the M in front of it. So, we're not guessing what's in the box, but we are trying to figure out why we would use this to help students. This activity is most likely to promote the students' word identification skills by helping them what? And just to brainstorm quickly, if you were one of those students, what would you maybe put in that box? We went to the mountain. Movies. What else?
Market.
Mall's the first one I thought of. Market. So what is this? It's promoting the students' word identification skills by helping them do what? What did you have to do just then?
Use context clues.
I had to use the words around the word.
Use the words around it. So it needed to make sense, right? So A, use syllabication as a decoding strategy.
No.
B, apply phonics generalizations to decode multisyllable words. Oh. C, use semantic and syntactic cues to help identify words. And just my little memory trick for semantic, semantic has to do with meaning. And semantic has that M in there, so that's how I can teach that to my students, that syntax is the order that the words are in. In other words, it wouldn't say we went Friday to last mall. That doesn't make sense. It's syntactically incorrect. So, and what's D? D is apply common consonant vowel patterns to decode unfamiliar
It will
words.
be C.
So C makes sense there. It is C, right? Better be C. Here's another one. This is a good one that I always want to talk about. This one. Again,
I'm having to read.
28, yeah. So we'll read the question and we'll scroll down. A second grade teacher administers spelling inventories periodically to help assess students' phonics knowledge. The following shows one student's performance on a spelling inventory at the beginning of the school year, and then again several months later. I remember there was a question like this on my test. Doesn't mean you will have one, but I do remember it. So here's what happened again, the beginning of the school year, and then we're going to look at what happened later and see if there's any change. So the student, which words are spelled, we'll say spelled wrong.
She has problems with the
Not conventional
vowels.
So star, what's going on here?
Drive.
What did the student leave off?
Sanity.
Left off the silent E.
With long vowels.
Even star.
And then that's an odd,
I'm
that's the ah sound instead of the ash, a short vowel.
So but we don't really know what, we'll go look at all of it and then we'll return to the question. Okay, so a couple months later, what's different? Set, star, drive. So there's two words that.
Peach.
And peach. Yeah, peach and join.
Because peach would have been pitch, the way she spelled it the first time, but with the
So
vowel.
what are those, so those words, peach,
That E,
But you have
that
the
long
vowel
vowel needs a
consonant.
silent.
Like that
we'll
middle.
talk about that, and then join.
She's the one when two vowels go up.
And the second one is silent.
It's missing most of the vowels.
Yeah,
Vowel sound.
this student understands what sounds they hear in there,
Yeah.
but they might need a little more instruction on this. So let's look at,
They don't do the CVV word.
Yes.
I'm hearing somebody's got that. So the student's performance on the second administration spelling inventory indicates that the student made the most improvement in which of the following areas. So they don't even, they want to know what they are doing better. Initial and final consonants.
No.
They were fine with that. And short vowels and diphthongs.
They're doing better on long R's.
You need to know what a diphthong is at that point. That's where you have to go back to your notes. Does anybody know it off the top of their head? I like purposely.
It's a two vowel.
Or
The
the
stuff-
CH, it's the two consonants.
A vowel here's a vowel diphthong.
Two vowels together like E,
But it's not
A,
short vowels, because the short vowels word he got or she got right.
is a vowel sound.
It's the double.
I think
Vowel
the answer is
words that
Long and R control.
like long.
digraphs.
Like oi in the word boy, ow in the word cow,
Yeah. That's the vowel, but it's a consonant.
boil, or oi in boil.
Those are our special friends in the back.
Those are vowel diphthongs.
So it will be
So
Makes me crazy.
Oh,
I think it's D.
hold on back here. So short vowels,
R
diphthongs,
control.
digraphs and blends, long and R controlled vowels.
B. B,
Do I hear B?
the two vowels.
Control vowels.
B.
So P.
28, what do we have?
It's the B or D. I don't
That
know.
student have problems with short vowel sounds because instead of star, he wrote star. It changed the U for the A, and then you fix that.
So has anybody looked at the answer?
Says improvement. Yeah.
It's D.
The answer is D.
Long
There's
and
no
R
R
controlled
controlled
vowels.
All the words that they improved.
And then
on.
vowel,
like
vowels.
in turn.
Yeah, I'm still struggling with the vowel diphthong.
Turn is a R control vowel.
Yeah.
Star.
And star is a R control vowel. And then the
They didn't
peach
improve on
is where they
short.
learned that you have to have another vowel at the end of it to make a long vowel sound.
The question asks what they made the most improvement in. They
Yes,
did not get the vowel diphthong. So that's why B would not be the answer.
right.
But just to answer that question, what terms do you have to know?
R
To know
control,
Digraphs.
digraphs, diphthong.
All 100.
That's why we talk about that one, because there's a lot packed into it. And as a teacher, what's the first thing that I hone in on is, oh, this student needs help with something here. But that's not what they're asking us. They're asking about what they made the most progress with. So I'm not trying to make you dizzy with this.
Long and R control vowels. And the only improvement were in R control vowels. So it's kind of like,
struggling now.
because long vowel,
But I,
doesn't,
what I had to teach
didn't get the long vowels.
Because we have to be
Right.
positive. What did
See
you
that
learn?
you don't ever get the terminology
of what you're doing. D is because
And
I
that
know
we
the
can
R
work with
So,
it. I don't work
that's
with it because we have to give everybody one.
you know,
To see it, I had to try to copy our ending. So then I would just buy my own.
They just taught us what
Logic.
well, I think it's kind of
What did
like,
you choose D?
And I guess now they
it's
want
kind of
us-
like
That's smart thinking.
They're
putting the cart
when assessment meetings would go like,
or-
oh, you know, it didn't improve all the way into this, but it got good improvement in here. We kind of segment the improvement, but
Well,
I don't know.
Let's move ahead. I don't want you to all sit here and feel depressed.
Degree. I mean, I might be.
Here's another kind of oddball one. So read the sentence below, then answer the question that follows. So here's the sentence. My family went to the circus last weekend. I liked the clowns the best. They were very funny. A student makes several miscues when reading these sentences aloud. Which of the following miscues represents an error in decoding consonant blends? So a miscue is just what you hear a reader say isn't the same as what's in the text. So,
consonant.
so if the student omitted the word circus,
Then that's not a consonant.
that just means they skipped it. B, pronouncing clowns as clones.
I think B.
C, saying bet for best. Or D, shortening funny to fun.
I think
in
B.
that, I think in that question you have to look at
Because if
constant
it's a
blends and know what a
consonant
constant
Clown,
blend
W-N.
is.
Clown.
It's C.
if it's a consonant blend, it has to be.
Yeah, the ST they missed.
Consonant blend.
Best.
Yeah.
They're missing the ST.
Cause the clowns as clones, they still got the CL correct.
Mhm.
And then
WN
they
is
missed
not
the
a
S and the T together.
So, and on that one, it's
They
easy
got
to
the vowel
eliminate
sound
A and
wrong.
D. So then we know,
Yeah, they got the.
So they did
C.
the vowel sound wrong.
did anybody check it?
So C is right.
Correct.
Can we do 33?
33, sure. So let's look at 33. Which of the following students demonstrates variation in reading development that would require intervention focused on explicit phonics instruction? So we've got a scenario here with a student that might need explicit phonics instruction. So A, a kindergarten student who can recite the alphabet from memory but has difficulty distinguishing individual phonemes in words. B, a first grade student who can easily decode nonsense words but has limited comprehension of the meaning of text. And the question isn't about comprehension at all, is it? So, C, a second grade student who is adept at using context cues to identify words, but has difficulty sounding out the letters in unfamiliar words. So that has to do with,
Yeah.
you know,
Phonics and
phonics. D, a third grade student who can read most grade level text fluently, but has difficulty with unfamiliar, irregular, low frequency words. What's your thinking there? Is there anything we can get rid of? Can we get rid of B?
Yeah, I mean, sounding out in C is sticking out to me. Like sounding out, that would be phonics.
I would say
Phonics.
I would say C.
So we've got, there's a lot of good thinking going on. 33.
I was thinking either A or C.
33 is C.
Right.
Not have that.
To not have that.
So they would require intervention in second grade.
Mhm.
So that would be why C would be the better answer.
Yeah, because A, you wouldn't need intervention in kindergarten
No,
yet. you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
B is
And reading
comprehension.
development, they wouldn't have, I don't know. I think C.
C.
It was C. So I'm gonna zip ahead a little bit further. Again, just kind of watching our time, because we're gonna need a lot for the last two questions. Here's another one that there's some interesting things going on here. So, says use the information below to answer the question that follows. A teacher poses the following question to fourth grade students. So now we're up in fourth grade. What words can you think of that have the word act in them? Using student responses, the teacher creates the following web on the board. Okay. This technique is likely to be most helpful for enhancing the student's awareness of, and then we've got 4 choices here. Morphemic structure.
What is that?
C, compound words.
Morphemic structure.
Syllable pattern.
I'm just looking at my list because
What number is this?
we are on
35. Morphemic structure.
35.
Oh, it's your word.
I will say D, because it's a root word.
The morpheme is the smallest unit in language.
What is A? What is it?
Morphemic?
It's the smallest unit in a language. So
That's not morphemic.
G.
That's not how the unit is.
I think it's D, because it's a root.
Greek root?
I thought it was Greek roots too.
I know.
I-
I'm
that-
talking
I-
about it because I'm sure.
I just went to Greek root because it is.
Yeah, it is a Greek root, and that seems like the logical. Why else? Yeah, that would want to talk about it.
It's not though.
Would it syllable pattern?
No.
What is the answer?
A, yes. I don't even know what morphemic structure is.
Smallest unit of
Meaningful.
For the smallest unit.
Okay, so it is, that makes sense because just a phoneme.
I guess they
Sound
give you
isn't-
the word
isn't a
act,
meaningful
then you have to
word.
put
No,
those the smaller units to act.
I was gonna say, yeah, I mean,
Like
it,
the
based off of
meaning.
your definition, because it started as act and then it built from that,
And it's
so.
a shortened segment of language that meets the word or part.
But that would go back to needing
to
those
know all those
definitions,
meanings,
so
though.
know that.
Yes, yes. I know what that was.
Yeah.
Because if I looked at it, I would say Greek roots, but after the definition.
Yeah.
Just that short segment language that means.
But I
But
guess
just
the Greek.
as a teaching point, if you were really teaching this, the thing that you would teach is something about Greek roots.
Yeah.
There's the
Because act
teaching
is the
element
root
of this
word.
would not
That's what I
be
was
Right.
morphemic structure.
Right.
We're talking about
Right.
how to use language and understand language and
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's just.
That's why I would have went to Greek words.
What was
Instead of Greek roots.
to have the act ending? So it's not really asking you for the Greek, it's giving you the Greek root act, it's asking you to your words to act.
so
Cannot be further divided.
But in this, it would have been.
Small,
Smallest.
small
No,
portable word
ED
that can't be
can't, S
divided.
can't. That, what they're adding to it cannot be.
Phonemic structure.
It's endings and prefixes and suffixes.
No. And look how many great people they
I'm glad y'all have a sense of humor. Let's look at 36, and then I'm gonna jump ahead.
What was
Which of the following
Was
sentence words would be most effective to use when introducing students to the concept of structural analysis? And again, that's a term that's somewhere in here in the notes. I need to just,
Structural analysis is.
I just wanna tell you this.
Structural
Are you, somebody with their
I have no
phone
idea.
can look it
I
up.
think structural analysis like the prefixes, the suffix.
So understanding prefixes and suffixes.
If I have to guess, I would say D.
I would guess D too.
Yeah, D, it is.
It's
Analysis can help readers determine the way a word is pronounced.
36.
It is being
Prefixes
used.
36 is D.
Yes.
So structural analysis has to do with prefixes and suffixes.
Can you do 38?
Yes.
So
Parts of a word are interpreted to form the entire word.
Following sentence is missing several words. A word with the suffix tion would fit best in which of the blanks in the sentences? So I have to just work your way through that.
What I did was, I just made up some words that, like action, come up with a word and see what that word sound better at.
Type of
I'm thinking the word combination.
Mm-hmm.
An unusual combination of spices.
Yep.
Gave the
makes
soup
the soup
and
a
interesting
interesting
gives
flavor.
the soup an interesting
unusual
flavor.
exceptional flavor.
I will say that too, an unusual combination. Yeah.
An unusual combination of
So-
spices. So it has to be two.
B fits there, right?
Collection of
36.
spices. Combination.
That's what it says to be.
It is B.
You have to be
Yeah.
you're choosing a word with the
See, that's one that you, yeah, pat
you have to
yourself
know
on the back.
suffixes now.
Feel better.
The words in
We literally, if I had you here all day, we would go through every
Was
one.
that first grade? Y'all have to break that down for me in first grade because I didn't get that one.
Did you wanna look at, what, stop me.
The following sentence is missing several.
I can't wrap my head around that.
So you just put it.
Unusual collection.
Yeah, that's what
See
they're
what
asking.
makes sense.
Yeah, just try to figure out where does it fit.
Right, and the
ION.
Yeah, I cannot do that with
An
my first
unusual
grader.
combination of spices gave the soup
Unusual set of spices.
and.
because it could be combination or creation of spices,
Gotcha.
just find a word with TION that fit in there, yeah. I got you.
You got it now? See, sometimes you overthink it, and that's a problem too.
I'm like, do you put it in order?
Let's do 43. Some of these just, again, there's a lot going on in this question. A third grade teacher administers the following informal reading assessment to individual students. So the students are asked to read aloud the following words: laugh, neighbor, beginning, friend, together, and young. And then they are asked to read a passage. Nick and Ben are best friends. They have been neighbors since they were very young in the beginning. They did not get along, but now they play together every day after school. They make jokes and laugh a lot. Okay, so you get through all that. Then what? One student performs significantly better on the second part of the test than on the first. Which of the following is the best assessment of this student's reading performance? At this point, I have to go read. A third grade teacher administers the following informal reading assessment. One student performs better on the second part of the test than on the first. So I assume you're just listening to this child read, right? Which of the following is the best assessment of the student's reading performance? The student is proficient at using context cues to help identify words, but has weak decoding skills. The student can decode single syllable words, but has not yet learned how to decode multi-syllable words.
No, there's multi-syllable in the second passage too.
The student is proficient at using syntactic cues to identify words, but not skilled at using semantic cues. The student understands letter sound correspondence. So really only one makes sense there. And it's the context cues. So that was 43. So A makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna jump.
This is the 6th grade, because I'm there when we got the 20, the one that was in the 6th grade students.
I mean, here again, it's like 1st grade, 4th grade. They just, was there one back here?
There was one, yeah, that it was for 6th grade, that one. 45.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're ever gonna work with 6th graders or not, you just understand all this. A 6th grade student encounters the following sentence in a short story. She experienced a sense of deja vu as she walked down the street of the strange new city. The student asks the teacher about the meaning of deja vu in the sentence. The teacher could best respond by advising the student to take which of the following steps. Now, a reasonable teacher would do what?
Tell the student
Just
what
tell
the
her it means.
Give an example of what
Yeah,
the
deja vu
context
is when you have that feeling like you've been somewhere before.
Yes, they use context clues. Most teachers.
That's what I would do. is-
Make note of the word in a vocabulary log and then study the word after finishing the story.
No.
But there's
No,
no,
context
there's no
cues.
context clues
Yeah.
really
But there's
there
no
to help
context
with
cues
that.
to help the student define, unless there's a sentence above that
Yeah.
one.
Right, exactly.
Look the word up in the dictionary and then paraphrase the sentence. Break the word into its component parts and then compare the parts.
Foreign word.
I would say,
It's
French, yeah.
I would say C. Besides, I would have explained to the
Looking the
student what
word
deja
up.
vu is,
Yeah.
but I will tell the student to look it up in the dictionary.
A. Make note of the words.
Because what we do is study the word vocabulary log after finishing the story, because the student is never gonna understand what deja vu is.
And if that doesn't work, then do vocabulary.
But here's my thinking as a teacher of children, a reader, is that I don't wanna stop the reading process and go
get a-
send you.
Right,
Get a
to
dictionary.
get a dictionary.
No, or do it after you're done with the story. That doesn't make any
Well,
sense. I think it's
that's
context cues.
Clues.
I call them
It's
clues.
context
They say
clues.
cues.
But there's
Teachers
nothing
use
there to
context.
show that you can use
Not in
that.
the piece that we have.
That's
Right, because there isn't anything
But that's
there.
something you do first. Is context clues.
But let's see what the answer is. Has anybody already looked at it?
What is it?
The answer is C.
See, I would not
Look at the word in the dictionary.
I would not
Will
stop instruction and wait for a kid. I had it when I was doing my student teaching. This exact thing happened. Everybody had to sit and wait for 10 minutes because the student didn't really. It was 3rd grade. Student wasn't quick at finding where they need to be in the dictionary. We all had to sit there and wait. It was just kind of like a waste of time. I would say context clues first. I teach 5th grade. That's what I would do is say
Look at the
use your
things
context
around
clues
it.
first.
Most
So go back to the
Yeah,
go
that's
back
the
to the
first
question
step of it.
because
And be- like she said, there is no
But I think
context
if you
clues
read
in
it, it
here.
says
But that
guess
is-
the meaning of the
not
word.
saying
What if
that
you guess
anyway.
the meaning of
So
the
if
word
this-
wrong? I think so. In B, what you really have to use is guess the meaning of a word. What if your guess is wrong?
But you have to understand in this era of
That's-
testing, that's the way we gonna think
context
as
clues are
teachers because
huge.
they
But
get
this is a
difficult.
6th
I
grade.
guess for that
But
example
if it's
specifically, there's no
I think
context
she
cues
read
in it.
alone, so it's not going to stop the whole class
Teacher
and
is
the
not
learning
gonna wait for the
process.
student
But if you in a
to find
classroom
the word.
setting,
It's just
I
like
think
go
that's
find the
what
word
I'm
and then
saying.
keep.
So
But
the
in
bottom,
the
I mean, we
example,
can
there's
talk this one to death. It's not gonna help because this is where sometimes you have to suspend your teacher logic and try to figure out what this test maker.
Yeah, based on the way the question is formed, it makes sense for it to be C. Because they don't give you anything else for context cues.
This is a question you got to use common sense on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is the best answer?
Like
Not your teacher's
what's the
skills.
way to get the student to get the answer to that?
Yeah, because if
correct
we do
answer.
A, it's like, I took a vocabulary PD and they said that you
Cause
should
it's this what
do
a
the
teacher
vocabulary
tell a child.
word
Use your
after
context
the
clues.
story, you finish reading the story, not before. So
I think it's
Just in the interest of time,
at the end of the test.
you guys are a great group. This is, I've gotten more interaction from this group than in the past. I felt like I was just, but this is helpful. It's a process that you have to think through and talk yourself through, and it helps having more smart people in the room like we have right here.
So that's like, can we do that one?
56?
Which one?
Because it has 3 questions for that reading.
Well, okay. So there's 3 questions that follow. So let's work our way through this, and that'll probably be a good break time. So, well, here's the scenario. Before reading aloud a book about a farm to a group of beginning readers, so we're back with young readers. A first grade teacher has the students brainstorm words and concepts related to farms. Next, she reads the text aloud from a big book, pointing to the words as she reads. After discussing the story with the students, she puts the book in the classroom library and encourages the students to read it on their own. So, question 56. The students are most likely to be successful in their independent reading of the book if A, they have previously heard and can recognize the text keywords. B, if the text does not include complex sentences. Or C, they come from homes where silent reading is extensively modeled. Or D, the text deals with fictional rather than factual.
I think it will be A.
A makes
Because when
sense.
they have some knowledge, it's
And that's the
easier
whole
to get
point of
knowledge
using a big
about.
book, is to, so they can see the words and the illustration and have some experience with that. So, do we all agree on that one? 55?
Yes.
The answer is A.
Okay.
A. So let's, 56. So let's read this one. The theoretical basis for including the brainstorming activity in this lesson is that having the students share their knowledge of farms prior to the reading will A, give the teacher an opportunity to assess and compare students' oral language skills. B, develop the students' understanding of basic concepts about print.
It's C.
C, yeah, I'm seeing that one. Facilitate the students' comprehension through schema building, which is again, that activating their prior knowledge.
Background knowledge.
That one, that's another one that you're like, yay, that makes sense. I would actually do that if I was a teacher.
Especially if you're not in a county where it's like farm oriented.
Yeah.
Like in Fayetteville,
Yeah.
Cumberland
If you were
County,
in inner
students
city
don't know
somewhere.
much about farming.
I had students from Chicago when I taught in Iowa who they had never seen corn or a cow, and they were college students. 57, the most important reason for putting the book in the classroom library is to promote the students' A, love of reading by facilitating access to a story they have already heard, understood, and enjoyed. I like that one. B, understanding of the alphabetic principle. C, oral language development, providing this opportunity to imitate teachers' reading. Or D, use of metacognitive strategies by allowing them to practice self-monitoring while reading silently.
Would it be D?
I hope not. 57. 57 is A. Yeah.
Okay. One of those.
Again, these are little kids, right? They haven't had practice thinking about their own thinking yet. That column. All right, let's jump
light sockets.
way ahead.
Do 60.
I heard someone say 60?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, and now we're in. Oops.
Just sit together and take it.
Down.
This is what I think. Yeah.
Good one up. Go down.
No, she's
Oh, there
right.
it is.
Said 60.
Okay. Oh.
During weekly independent reading time, 5th grade students Read high-interest literature and record their thoughts, reactions, and questions in a teacher-student dialogue journal. The dialogue journal activity is likely to promote the students' reading proficiency primarily by encouraging students' active construction and meaning with the text and developing literacy response skills. Increasing students' fluency and facilitating rapid automatic word recognition. Expanding students' vocabulary knowledge and providing them with extensive varied reading experiences. Or D, promoting students' appreciation for literary genres and exposing them to various features of literary excellence. So what are the kids doing? They're reading their book on their own,
Right.
and recording thoughts and reactions and questions. So what makes sense? I heard A. 60 is A. And that's someone that makes sense to me.
Okay.
All right. Really jump ahead. But even when you think you've gotten to 6th grade, they throw in a 3rd grade. So they can't let it rest. Any of those sound appealing that you want to dig deeper?
Let's jump to some.
Let's jump to 71. I heard that. 5th grade class is about to begin reading a text about the European exploration of North America. Before they begin, the teacher has the students brainstorm what they already know about the topic. After reading the text, she encourages them to share any additional information that they may have thought of as they were reading. These activities are likely to promote the students' comprehension by A, encouraging them to connect new information to prior knowledge. B, helping determine the author's point of view and purpose. No. C, encouraging them to use context cues to make inferences. D, helping them analyze the text in terms of main idea and supporting details.
I think A.
So what's the answer? 71.
Already know.
It is A.
A.
Because they're connecting their prior knowledge to what they now know.
Honestly, when you take the test, you'll get a score, but you won't know that you maybe did particularly well in one section or another. It would be great if you got that kind of helpful information
I would
back.
have
All the money that you
where
paid
I
for
needed
it.
to. I would want to know, especially how I did in the open questions. But it doesn't tell you where you need to.
Yeah.
Feel like.
And the ones that, I mean, they just have to find so many different ways to get at phonemic awareness and a lot of things that, again, you need those terms for. And it's just so heavily weighted with those kinds of questions. Some of these just make sense. Let's look at this 76. A 6th grade teacher has students work in small groups to begin to develop a KWL chart before they read a textbook chapter on the human brain. Using a KWL chart in this way is most likely to help students do what? A, connect their background knowledge to information in the chapter, identify main ideas and supporting details.
They haven't even read it yet.
No, I know. Exactly. Synthesize information from various sections of the chapter.
It will be A.
It's A.
It would
That's
be
what they
A.
know, what they know, what they want to,
Yeah.
what they could learn.
So 76 was A, right?
I didn't like.
Okay. Jump ahead. Okay, so there will be a few questions about English language learners. I have a really strong background in working with English language learners. But some of the questions that I remember encountering on the test, no, we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't think that way. But again, sometimes there's not logic on this test. So 78 is, we have an English language learner who reads academic text fluently in her primary language, but is struggling to understand her content area textbooks in English. This student would likely benefit most from engaging in which of the following activities? A, translating textbook reading assignments from English into her primary language. B, receiving reading comprehension instruction with text written in her primary language. C, learning to use metacognitive reading strategies with English text. Or D, reading text in her primary language that cover the same material as her English textbooks.
Probably C.
C. I'm hearing C.
I would not pick any of them.
I think it's probably C. Because in the English language, they don't, I mean, what they're trying to do is they're trying to help the students to be able to understand what they're
She
learning
reads
in
that
English.
fluently
Yeah,
in her
she
primary
reads-
language.
Right, she knows her language.
Some way to get at that content area information. So, is there an answer?
But
that
in
would-
real life, like I have a student that she's from the Middle East and she speaks a dialect from the country that she comes from. There's no way we can translate anything for her
No, then
in
that's
that
not-
dialect. Even the new program that they have in the county for ELL students,
Mhm.
they don't even have the dialect for her
Right.
country.
Mhm.
So
In Arizona, I'm licensed to teach in Arizona. We are required to be able to do our lesson plans in both incorporating ELL students.
Mhm.
Because they are not taken from the classroom or anything like that. We have to make sure that our lessons incorporate both our English students and our ELL. So that involves giving them instruction that helps them to understand what's being taught, but understanding it in the English language, using prior background knowledge about the subject area. But they have to be able to, it would be seeing, they would have to be able to understand it in the English language.
Yeah. And the C is the answer there. And metacognitive strategies, that's being aware of your own thinking. That's what that means, metacognition. Being aware of when things are making sense and when they're not making sense, and trying to reconnect it to whatever schema you have.
and what was the answer?
It is C.
C.
And I mean, the other ones just aren't necessarily practical, especially translating isn't practical. Okay, here's a big one. Let's do this one and then we'll take a short break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the open-ended responses. We'll need a lot of time for that. So we've got a 5th grade teacher. Again, this is content area literacy. So if you've worked with intermediate grades or 4th, 5th, 6th, you're maybe more accustomed to thinking about these things. So we've got an excerpt from the chapter about Bunker Hill. So let's go ahead and read that. So we've got a 5th grade teacher plans to have students read the chapter from their social studies book. The Battle of Bunker Hill took place on June 17, 1775. At the time, the American Army occupied the area from Cambridge to the Mystic River. American troops gathered in Cambridge Common on the evening of June 16, 1775, and set out for Bunker Hill. Upon reaching Bunker Hill, however, officers decided to move to Breed's Hill, a smaller hill close to Boston. Did we ever learn all that? I don't remember. Based on this excerpt from the chapter, which of the following graphic organizers would best promote students' awareness of the chapter's text structure? So, yeah. You know what a Venn diagram is? It's the two second circles, right? So yeah, the one, there's a lot of dates here, so the one that would help me is the timeline. What's on your answer sheet?
Timeline.
So what else? In question 80, the teacher asked students to locate and mark places mentioned in the chapter on a map as they read. This activity is most likely to help students, A, use visualization to facilitate their comprehension of the text. B, paraphrase content. Are they paraphrasing content?
No.
Connect elements in the text to background knowledge.
No.
I don't know.
Or A, definitely.
Because it says.
Yeah.
Why can't they all be questions like this? That makes sense.
Right.
That's why when you get
Like that you can really think of
when you
and wrap
get
your
one
head
that's
around.
Like, oh, thank God, it just would kill us.
You can
if we
actually
didn't throw-
visualize
Yes.
it in classroom.
Exactly.
You can wrap your head around
Exactly.
it.
That's what I, you know, that's what I'm trying to do, visualize it in the classroom. What would I do in class?
All right,
It's
I'm
more
skipping-
practical, you know, when we can do it that way. The other way was just those other questions. Gosh.
So there's 100 questions. There's number 100 right there. You want to do that one real quick before we jump up? Electronic reading books are advantageous for beginning or struggling readers, primarily because this type of computer software, and I personally don't like to ever use anything like that.
Me either.
I don't like it for myself.
I need to interact.
Yes.
So they're advantageous because of what? They scaffold learning by providing a high level of interactivity. Help students develop familiarity with reading from a computer screen. C, provides students with models of good reading habits. D, minimizes the focus on written text by using sound effects and voices.
That's a.
What is it?
It says A.
It says A.
Scaffolds learning by providing a high level of interactivity.
I think that's what people
So
who promote
interaction.
that kind of stuff would try to convince.
That's what they
Yeah,
think.
that's what they would,
Yeah.
yeah, but
But
for an
that's
actual
not
teacher,
real.
we wouldn't want all that distraction. We want
Exactly.
the text.
You know who probably sells some great computer programs?
Pearson.
I didn't say that. You did. All right, so I need a quick break too. So
But
get up
a
and
struggling
stretch.
reader, I would want, I don't know.
Stretch for another hour.
You are, but these skills are
I know.
technology.
So many things. I put my struggling reader on Teacher wants her to read, and she's going to fail. But it's scaffold learning.
So we're gonna kind of be going back and forth between these two. So here's, and this is again the practice test. We finished scrolling back where we just ended up with our 100 multiple choice. So, picture yourself in the testing center. This is where I needed my little whiteboard and my markers, again, to organize my thinking, and I got very frustrated with that. So they're gonna ask you to write, and again, you'll be typing your response into a box, but what you will see is very much like what we are gonna see in this practice test. It will be it'll be the same type of question, just a different scenario. So expect to see something like this. So they're gonna 150 to 300 words is nothing. That's nothing really.
Right.
So you don't have the luxury of writing a lot of stuff. Whatever you pack into your 150 to 300 words has to count. And so what we're going to talk about is what is it that they want to see in that response that's going to give you a good score. So we will talk about that. So again, there will be directions, and I'm not going to. This is just getting us to the first item.
And we have to handwrite this?
You will be typing you'll be typing it on the computer. It'll show you a box that you're just kind of typing into, and it'll.
And you can cut and paste, usually, like on the practice ones you can. You can cut and paste, so if you say, oh, I don't like that there, don't retype the whole thing over, try to copy and paste it.
Okay.
I don't remember there being problems with
Yeah,
that part of it.
just like a normal computer.
But, so this is like what you will see. Okay, what we have here, and I'll scroll, well, actually, make it a little smaller so you can, I'll make it bigger again, but I want you to see this is what you will see. What we're looking at here is a story that this third grader is reading. And this is like what I had, I remember this story, Cricket in Times Square. Does anybody know that story?
Yeah.
That was the excerpt that I read in my test that I took was from that book. This is an excerpt from a book. I'm just showing you the big picture here. Let's go back. So, we have a student who is in third grade. And this is on your sheet, so you can look at your sheet. A third grade student has been silently reading 7 Kisses in a Row by Patricia McLaughlin. That's her real book, by McLaughlin. In the passage shown below, Aunt Evelyn is knitting baby booties for the child she's expecting. Her niece Emma notices some problems with the booties. So what you're going to do is you're going to read this, and then you're going to read what Tyler, the third grader, said in response to a retelling prompt. And then it's going to ask you to talk about one of the student's strengths as a reader and one of the student's weaknesses as a reader. So the only way to get at this is just kind of plow through it. So will you read along with me on your sheet? We'll read what Tyler is reading, and then we'll think about Tyler's retell. So the book that Tyler's reading says, Aunt Evelyn, said Emma, I have something bad to tell you. What's that? Asked Aunt Evelyn. Your baby will eat those spangles. Emma pointed to the baby booties. Oh dear, said Aunt Evelyn, I suppose you are right. I don't know very much about babies. Emma felt sorry for Aunt Evelyn. Don't worry, Aunt Evelyn. I was a baby about 7 years ago, and my mother told me what I was like. Aunt Evelyn put her arm around Emma. You'd better tell me all about it, she said. First of all, Emma began, babies don't pay attention to rules. They will eat spangles on booties and wet and spit up milk and cry and wake up and sleep whenever they want. Aunt Evelyn sighed. That's true, isn't it? Emma nodded. She looked at the purple spangled booty. Aunt Evelyn, I have something more bad to tell you. Now what? Asked Aunt Evelyn. Those purple booties are much too big for your baby, said Emma. But I have some in my room that I saved from when I was a baby. They're not purple. I could give them to you. Aunt Evelyn smiled at Emma. Only if you want to, Emma. Emma went into her room and found the booties. They were pink and blue, and they were very small. Aunt Evelyn loved them. Emma, she said, I have noticed something. I think the purple spangled booties will fit you. I knew that, said Emma. Aunt Evelyn laughed. Oh, Emma, I like you. So you'll have to read whatever story is on your chest. After Tyler finishes reading the passage, and again, what grade was Tyler in?
Third.
The teacher prompts her to retell this part of the story. Shown below is Tyler's oral retelling of the passage. So here's what Tyler says. Aunt Evelyn has some purple baby booties with spangles on them. They're for her baby. I don't know what spangles are. Maybe they're like bangles, but much smaller? Anyway, Emma likes the spangles and wants the purple booties for herself. So she decides to trade them for her pink and blue booties. Aunt Evelyn seems really happy with the pink and blue booties, and she thanks Emma. So, what do you have to do? You have to use your knowledge of reading comprehension, and the terms that you're going to need to understand are literal comprehension, inferential comprehension, engagement of schema, and self-monitoring. And you need to write a response in which you identify one of Tyler's strengths relating to reading comprehension and one of Tyler's weaknesses relating to reading comprehension. So you're going to have 2 parts to your response. And then it says, be sure to cite specific evidence from the passage and the retelling to support your thoughts. So before we're going to look at examples of responses, both weak responses and strong ones. But before we do that, and that's in your other handout, let's talk about those terms that they use there. Literal comprehension. What does that mean, literal comprehension?
What has been said, like main idea of what's been said in the
And is there any place in Tyler's retell where it sounds like she's really taking things literally and maybe not inferring like she could?
When she says that
Well,
she
she
has
knows
the
the overall
purple baby
story.
booties.
Go ahead. I
She-
want to-
She knows the overall main idea of the spangle booties.
The pink and the description of the booties, the pink and blue booties. Cause that's They're talking about what's actual, really, the direct information being taken from the passage, right?
Yeah. I guess she's giving sequence, she's going in order as a school head.
So she's doing, her retell shows that she is
She's tracking with them.
She comprehends.
There might be
right.
some things that are inferred in the story that maybe she doesn't pick up on because she's being too literal. But we'll look at some of the example responses too. So inferential engagement of schema, what does that mean again?
Using background knowledge and.
So she doesn't know what spangles are, but how is she using her background knowledge?
She comparing.
Yeah, she knows the word bangles,
She's trying
which is like spangles, and she's thinking maybe they're like bangles, but smaller. Again, so she's using her schema. And self-monitoring, that's knowing when things aren't making sense. So the best way to do this now is to take your other handout that says evaluation information, the open response evaluation. And on the second page of that, it shows you how these questions are going to be scored. So let's look at that. What's the highest you can get for one of these?
4.
Open in 4. Obviously, we want you to get a 3 or 4. And fortunately, they have some examples here of what you should do and what you should not do. So let's go ahead and look on the page 56 on your handout there. This is an example of a weak response. And we'll talk about why this is a weak response. So this person wrote, one of Tyler's strengths relating to reading comprehension is that she understands how people feel in the story. She says that Aunt Evelyn seems really happy, and she picks up on that because of the clues about how she is smiling and laughing throughout the passage. Well, that's not really incorrect. So, one of Tyler's weaknesses in reading and comprehending the story would be her lack in understanding the vocabulary. She does not understand what spangles are, and she tries to relate it to a word that rhymes with it. Actually, that might be considered a strength, right? Because of this, Tyler does not fully understand what she's saying or how to explain it to her teacher. So, what makes this a really lousy answer? So, they're going to be looking for purpose, subject matter knowledge, support, and rationale. These are the components that the scorer is going to be looking for. So, first of all, the candidate has provided a limited response to this prompt. I haven't counted the words there, but doesn't that seem really, really short? There's just not enough there to go on. The strength and weakness given are relatively unimportant aspects of reading comprehension. The candidate does not use specific reading comprehension terminology. This is the one thing that if you forget everything else from today, just know that whoever scores this, I believe it will be a human being scoring this part of it. But do they know anything about reading? No, they don't really need to. I'm sure they don't need to know anything about reading. They might have some kind of background in education, or they might have a college degree in business and are scoring for Pearson. So, wow. So and there's an incentive if you work as a scorer for these big testing empires, that more is better, and you'll get a bonus if you score more than the guy sitting next to you. So are they spending a lot of time looking at your thoughtful answer and figuring out what it is you mean to say? No, they're going to be looking for some key things in there. And so when your question is asking you, to use your knowledge of reading comprehension, and
They're giving you terms right there.
Yeah. if you don't use those terms, you're not going to get a good score. So you need to figure out how to use those terms in a way that makes some kind of sense. So here again, the problem with this one is that they don't use the specific terminology. The thing that they do say is vague. If the candidate had discussed specific passages where Tyler must have inferred meaning in order to conclude that Emma understands how people feel, or noted the impact that not understanding the word bangles may have had on her comprehension, the response would have been stronger. So even just, so looking back at that story, this is where you're kind of jumping back and forth between the story and the response. Aunt Evelyn laughed at one point, and in Tyler's retell, Evelyn seems really happy. So Tyler inferred that she seems really happy from where it says Aunt Evelyn laughed and said, "Oh, Emma, I like you." So this is, could that be a strength that you could talk about for this reader? That they were able to use that inferential comprehension. So what they want you to do is find a place where Tyler, shows one of these strengths and use the terminology to describe what that strength was or that weakness.
And they want you to cite, like, in this
You
sentence.
need to say inferential comprehension when you're, and
we need to
and
refer to the
and
task.
refer, like, pull out a little example of that. So there's 2 examples of weak responses for that, and then there's 2 examples of strong responses. And just because we need to keep rolling, let's turn to what's on page 58 on that handout. It's the first sample strong response for open response item 1. So this person wrote a lot more than that first one, so that's a good thing. And they give us a little bit of an intro sentence too, which I think gives it a better feel too. So let's read what this person has to say. Tyler's interpretation of the story is obviously a basic one, but displays some strengths and weaknesses in the area of reading comprehension. So just having that little sentence there, doesn't that make it more friendly to the reader? I like that. I think that probably helped this person. One of Tyler's strengths lies in her inferential comprehension. After reading the story, Tyler tells the teacher that Emma wanted the purple spangled booties for herself and traded her old pink and blue booties with Aunt Evelyn. Tyler understood that Emma wasn't just being nice by giving her aunt advice about the baby. She picked up on the part of the story where Emma agreed with her aunt that the booties would fit her by saying, "I knew that." This shows that Tyler understood Emma's ulterior motive. However, Tyler misses a more subtle idea that the aunt probably intended the purple booties to be for Emma in the first place. So that's a pretty nice response in that they referred back to the story in a place where it mentions Tyler's retell. They use that terminology, inferential comprehension. So that's a lot better than that first response. And another strength that Tyler has is self-monitoring her understanding. She doesn't know what spangles are, but relates them to bangles. Maybe they're like bangles, but much smaller. Now, if I was writing my response, I would talk about how Tyler was using her engagement of schema to associate that new word with something that she was familiar with and understood that it had to be small and all of that. So there's not one right way of answering. So then we get to the weakness. On the other hand, one of Tyler's weaknesses is literal comprehension. She left out essential details of the story. She left out that Aunt Evelyn is pregnant and is knitting booties for her baby. She left out the fact that Emma gave Aunt Evelyn advice about babies, that babies will wet and spit up milk and cream, that babies will eat spangles, and that the booties she was making were too big for a baby. These omitted literal aspects may have been why Tyler missed some of the inferences in the story. Again, my response would look different than this, but what they're going to be looking for is, so what's some other terminology that you see there?
Literal.
The literal comprehension.
But she
And-
does just like her whole answer is related to inferences.
Yeah. So, but they're going to be looking for, did this person use literal comprehension? Yes. Self-monitoring, is that another one that we had? Again, so, and the inferential.
And she cited information.
And
from
she
the-
cited information, so what's more important is how you convey your response. Probably more so than having a lot of little details in there. They're gonna be looking for, are you using examples? Are you using the terminology? And for all I know, they just hone in on those and ignore the rest, but who knows? So why is this a good response? Let's read what they say here. The candidate addressed the assignment fully by focusing on reading comprehension and explaining Tyler's demonstration of a strength and a weakness. Again, if they're asking you to talk about comprehension, don't go off and talk about vocabulary and all kinds of other random things. Stick with just, again, you've got 300 words. Beyond that, they probably don't want to read more than that. What else? So again, they're using the correct use of terminology there. They're providing examples that are relevant to the discussion. And the response is ably reasoned and relates each part of the discussion to the whole picture of Tyler's comprehension. So again, that's what a good one should look like. Let's go ahead. Any questions that you have? Because I know I'm zipping along. But what you have on your test, I can't guarantee this 100%, but everyone who's reported back to me has said they had something that was almost exactly like this.
Okay.
So they better not switch it up on me. Yep. All right, so next open response. So your other handout. So the second open response item looks like what's called a miscue typescript. Any of you have experience with miscue analysis?
College.
I did this with my graduate student. But I will write this term up here because they don't really. What's this? Miscue analysis. Analysis. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have to stand back. Okay, so miscue analysis is where a teacher, for example, listens to a reader read aloud from a piece of text. It should always be a whole piece of text, not just random words or something out of context. And you listen to what the reader is doing and you observe how they, what happens when they encounter something that maybe disrupts their meeting, their reading. A miscue is another term for mistake. I don't like the word mistake because it doesn't capture what happens when we make a miscue. You all make miscues, I make miscues. You don't make as many because you're experienced readers. Younger beginning readers make more miscues when they're reading. So we've got a third grader who is reading aloud a passage from an unfamiliar story. As he reads, the teacher notes his performance on a separate copy of the story. So this would be called a typescript, where you've taken a page or several pages from a book and typed up onto another sheet so that you can code on that sheet. So what we see below is an excerpt from the teacher's record of Daniel's oral reading performance. Now, how many are familiar with the miscue typescript? Anybody? Okay, that's good. So this is good that we're all kind of on the same page, wondering what on earth this means and what this looks like.
Do you
So,
mean as far as like how that's set up?
the
how this
coding,
is? Because when you do the Dibbles testing, it's exactly like this. You have to follow along on the screen with them, and then if they have the miscue or they have, this is exactly what we do.
do you
They're
do
done.
coding like this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it doesn't have for short pause or long
in
pause.
Dibbles,
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's the only
for the
thing it doesn't.
DRC, it has the,
And it doesn't have
which
the
I think is
repetition.
omission.
the unfortunate thing
Self-correction.
about Dibbles is that it really doesn't capture
Yeah.
what the whole point of miscue analysis is that we can get at what's going on in the thinking of a reader, and we can get at how well they comprehend based on their retell. It's not just doing this. We listen to them retell. They might have made a lot of miscues, and it might sound like that, oh wow, this kid is really struggling. But they do a phenomenal retell, and that tells me that this child is comprehending. So that's the piece that they don't include here in our little scenario. So the coding is the thing that you'll need to understand, and when you do this practice test, again, it will prepare you for the real deal. So down here we see a key that shows us what these codes represent. So a circle means a deletion. That means they just skipped that word, and we see that happens here. And we'll work our way through this. But the word daydreamed is circled. That means when the reader got to that, they literally just kept reading. They skipped that and went on. And skipping a word is one strategy that readers can use in order to keep going and keep the flow. One little line is a short pause. That arrow means that they repeated. So you can see what those are, and we're going to go back through the story and, again, just kind of relive what happened when this reader read the story. And you've got it on your sheet, too, so whatever is easiest for you to listen. So let's read along, and I will pause and we'll talk about each miscue. Emily ran into her bedroom and threw her, and what's that one line?
Pause.
A short pause. So, short pause. And then we hear the reader say baka, and then that C stands for
Self-corrected.
corrected. Yeah, so backpack on the bed. There you are. And another short pause. And what's going on when that pause happens?
She's thinking.
She's thinking. She's trying to think of the word, yes.
So sushi, sush, and self-corrects to sunshine. She cried, did you miss me?
She said that word again.
Sunshine. Now look at, look at the smart things that's going on here. This is where I love doing miscue. I don't like how it gets used on this test. Sunshine seemed to, Sunshine was Emily's new pet, another pause, goldfish, and then she repeats the whole line, pet goldfish. Sunshine seemed to swim a little faster as Emily gazed into the bubbling, pause, fishbowl. Are you hungry? She asked, reaching for the small counter of fish food. Counter fish food isn't sounding right, so what does Daniel do?
She self-corrects and then rereads.
Container of fish food. Sunshine swam up as Emily spilled the little flakes of food on the water. Now, we don't see a self-correction there. Why do you think that is?
That spill makes sense.
Because spilled makes sense. It also, what else does it have that's similar with the two? What's similar about the two words? It's the first sound
and the last sound.
The ED, the SP, and spilled
So
makes
just looking
sense.
at it quickly, you probably thought it was correct.
Yes. And it doesn't really disrupt. Spilled the flakes of food, sprinkled, what's the difference? The meaning is still there, no disruption of meaning. It had only been a week since she brought Sunshine home from the pet store, but now Emily felt like she had known Sunshine fever forever. Are you already kind of getting a feel for what happens to this reader when they come upon?
She gets the sunshine.
Compound
Yeah,
words.
they're compound words.
Or more than one syllable.
Yeah. But this is good reading to me. It's hard for me to to talk about weaknesses here, because I see all these good things happening. But now Emily felt like she had known sunshine, fever, she practiced for forever. It was not, and here again, what does she do when she comes to difficult?
Says different.
She substitutes different. It was not different to take care of a pet fish. Is that a problem? Not really. Emily also, and again, she self-corrects, remembered to feed her pet when she came home from school. Sunshine kept her company while she did her homework. After dinner, she often lay on her bed and what's those two slash lines
Long
there?
pause.
Long pause. So a lot of thinking going on. Finally, just
skip right over it. Smart kid.
She's attending to her reading, and she's not gonna. She has good strategies going, so she just goes ahead and skips that, letting her mind float while she watched sunshine glide through the water. Okay, so what do they want us to do with this? So using your knowledge of word identification strategies, use of phonics, analysis of word structure, and use of context clues, and identification of sight words, write a response in which you identify one of Daniel's strengths and one of Daniel's weaknesses. Now I'm pretty sure that on my test, I kind of went off on my own little tangent on this one because I have a lot of experience doing Miscue, and I feel like I know way more than whoever wrote this test, which is not to be cocky about it, but I probably didn't get a good score on it because I went totally off. But you know why I could do that? You guys can't do that. I could do that because there's absolutely no high stakes for me to take this test. So, and at this point, I'm just going off on this question. So, don't do what I did. Just, let's look at the example of a weak response and the example of a strong response and see where they kind of want us to be with this. And you know right from the get-go, what words are they going to want to see in your response?
Comprehension, structure, context, clues.
And
I can't believe they give you those keywords. Like they give you those words on your test.
Yeah, it'll look just.
That's awesome.
It'll say if you don't talk about word identification strategies.
I would think they would want you to.
You will not get a
No,
good
come up with that.
Really, I think your response.
What strategies could the student use? I just can't believe they give you.
So we're looking at Danielle. I want to look at the.
That's page 60.
60. All right, let's look at, okay, 60. So, this is a weak response. Understand Daniel's reading capabilities. I made observation of the teacher's notes on a particular reading performance. From these notes, I will identify one strength and one weakness as demonstrated by Daniel. There's a lot of fluff there.
Yeah.
And I don't see any mention of word identification strategies, which is probably what they're looking for. One weakness that is evident is his reading is repetition. Is there anything up there that talks about repetition?
No.
No. So stay away from it. Though it only occurred twice, it shows that he still can have a tendency to rush to get through the assignment. When he repeats himself, there is a word that he has just struggled with saying out loud. It could be possible that he's repeating the phrase so that he can hear the word aloud again in the same phrase. Does this person know anything about anything? This is just a total BS. Daniel is very diligent about correcting himself. There are observed 9 instances of him giving himself a short pause to think about the word. And here again, I mean, talk about a strength, talk about a weakness. This is just kind of rambling. It is good that he takes time to try to say the word correctly rather than getting frustrated and giving up. This is not a good response. So why is it bad? The candidate attempts to address Daniel's reading capabilities in a general way and does not focus on the topic of word identification. Consequently, this response fails to identify one specific word identification strategy that is a weakness and one that is a strength. And I'm not going to read through all of that, but yeah, it's just the things that they're looking for are not in that response. Another week one.
So the best thing we can do is write our keywords down that they give us. And
Like jot down notes.
pull examples from there and then write our response from that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I would do. Make sure you hit on all those.
And
Just write like in your notes. Just make like a note, like notes basically, like.
And that's when you'll
Phonics.
need
How
that
do
little
you use
whiteboard and
phonics?
that
How
marker,
do
Exactly,
and you
yeah.
better make sure that marker works.
This seems to be like an example of, I don't know if they do that or not for 7th grade, but I know 7th grade had to take a writing test.
Okay.
And this is like an example of that writing test that 7th grade had to take. Well, one year, I think North Carolina had a writing test that if you was in the 7th grade, you had to pass that writing test in order to pass. I think my children went through that. I mean, I would think two of my
I
oldest
know
children
there used to be
went through
something
that.
in
And
third and
this
fourth
was
grade.
just like it, just like it. Where they had to take, they had to identify the meanings of what and everything and put it into their essay. And they had to write an essay from something.
Well, you have experience with that.
I figured it out when I seen. I was like, oh,
It looks familiar.
familiar, you know, familiar with 7th grade writing.
So, let's look at the other week response too, because we have enough time to look at both week responses here, and these might be helpful. So, on page 61, let's look at what this person said. Daniel shows strength in his inference reading. Does that make sense?
No.
He can figure out what most of the words are. He rereads words that don't make sense so that they can improve the meaning of the sentence. He can read and understand what is there in the story and correct any words that don't go along with the meaning he's making. That is his strength. So, does this person need to have a lot of subject matter knowledge?
No.
They, yeah.
He's a good reader for someone in the 3rd grade.
Wow. Some of the words were
this a
hard for
teacher?
him, so I think he needs to work on his punctuation.
Wow.
I wonder if this really came from a person who took
I'm
the test.
curious. Yeah. Because this is scary.
Maybe that's
If
why
so.
Well, if you didn't prepare for this test and you were sitting there struggling and at a loss,
No idea what
you
these
would
words
BS
mean.
your way through it.
Well, I mean, for us, we teach, this is what we are teaching. It's, look at your instruction of what's being given, and it will tell you when you're answering this question, use the information from the text to answer the question. So, honestly, that's what we're teaching. So, I would like to think that's what we do.
Exactly. Every question, written comprehension, use information.
Use information from the
and then
use
we go
details from the text to support your
does
answer.
your answer has information from the text?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Then what do you need to do? I have to do it again.
Get it back, do it again. Fix that.
Well, keep doing what you're doing so that when they get to college, they will.
Oh, I had students I taught community college. Oh my God. I was like, what did they do when they went to school?
Well, we don't
What
have kids
happened
write.
to
We
them?
don't have them
Like,
write.
they don't know how to write. They don't know how to read.
And it's not fair to say they don't know how.
Right.
We're not letting them write. We're
Right.
modeling writing for them.
They didn't know how to retell. There was nowhere. We'll ask them a question and they will be like, what are you talking about?
Right. Right.
So I don't know if anything good could come out of forcing people to take the Pearson test, it would be to
Practice what we teach.
well, to refocus, starting in colleges of teacher ed, like what I do, is focus on what's really important, like making meaning from what you read. If they want us to know how to do this with learners, then, if this could drive changes further on down the line, that would be great, because and again, Dibbles doesn't get at what we
When I look at all the different tests that we have to take, this one, the math one, and the general curriculum one, the foundations of reading is the one that matches more what we do in the classroom than the math and the general curriculum. Like, I'm more afraid to do math and general curriculum because it has nothing to do with what I study in school for elementary education.
Really broad and
I have to solve math problems that maybe not even a sixth grader is going to be able to solve. And it's kind of like, I feel like that's where I will not be able to pass. Because I figured that once I started teaching, because I took the first time I took it was last summer as soon as I graduated. Just kind of like to see what the test was about, because when they hired me, they already had the 2-year time. I didn't have to take the test before starting teaching. And I figured that once I was in the classroom, this part of the test was going to be easier for me because I would be using it in the classroom all the time.
And that's, I mean, I am the first one to embrace the idea that you need foundational knowledge about teaching readers and writers. Why is it just called a reading foundation test? Why isn't it literacy? And why isn't writing a piece of this? And why? I mean, I just have all these questions about what would be better for you, and what would more accurately reflect your knowledge base. Because everyone in here is really smart about kids and what you've seen and how you've taught, and that the test is just such a different animal from what we actually do and know. And that's my frustration. That's why that's why if I can do anything to help any of you, and that's why I'm here today, to be a resource for you. So let's look at a strong response for this one. And going back to the typescript to see what they're doing right here. And just from the get-go, nice length of a response, right? Okay. And a nice introduction that I like too. Daniel shows both strengths and weaknesses in reading this passage aloud to his teacher. That's great. I like that. He is able to use context clues to correct himself, and that is his strength. However, his greatest weakness appears to be in the analysis of word structure. So here we go. Daniel's use of context clues is strong. And context clues.
Yeah, I was
Look back in here, the words that they want you to use, context
So far,
clues.
everything.
So be looking for those. He often says an unknown word incorrectly, but then relies on the meaning of the words around it to correct himself. So again, we understand that he's self-correcting, and we want to point that out. For example, when he reads the word container as counter in the phrase container of fish food. And so what has this person done there? They've gone back and given a specific example.
Details from the reading.
Daniel realizes that it doesn't make sense and reads the phrase correctly. So I would say that they don't ask me to use this term, but he's monitoring his comprehension there. He's monitoring, and he realizes it didn't make sense, so he self-corrects. Also, the use of context clues can be seen when he corrects goalish for goldfish and fib for fishbowl. He is taking in the meaning of the sentence. He did not self-correct when he read spilled for sprinkled because his guess still works within the context. So again, this shows that this person understands something about reading, and they're looking for that subject matter knowledge. There are many miscues in the passage. What has this person done?
Read.
They've used the term miscue. And surprisingly, you don't see it anywhere on the actual test.
That's why I wrote it down.
But does this tell me that this person has some subject matter knowledge? There are many miscues in this passage that really point to Daniel's weakness. Now, for me personally, every miscue in there points to his strengths. Every one of them. But I can't say that because I'll get points taken. His analysis of word structure is lacking, especially with compound words.
Yeah.
I would
first
probably
thing I
say
noticed.
that differently, but that would be something you could talk about. To me, it's a strength that he's building that knowledge as he goes. He's only a third grader. Let's give this kid a break. But this is a way that you could talk about a weakness, is looking at how when he comes to those compound words or those multisyllabic words, he miscues, but then self-corrects. So it's a weakness and a strength at the same time. He paused and misread backpack, sunshine, goldfish, fishbowl, forever, and homework, but then was able to read them correctly using context. It would help Daniel if he learned to break up compound words into their smaller words. This weakness is hurting his overall reading and comprehension. So this person apparently got a good score because they're telling us about it. Again, we see right from the get-go that they are using that terminology that they're looking for. They've thoroughly explained how a strength and weakness are revealed. Candidate uses specific knowledge of word identification strategies. And then for the analysis of word structure, again, highlighting the fact that compound words might be a problem, and using specific examples from the text. And so any other thoughts about this as you're reading this? What are your thoughts about why this one is stronger?
Stays on topic, and she also cites evidence from the text.
Yeah. Good point.
That's what I was going to say.
You're gonna say?
There's good examples.
It just makes more sense too, you know, like he gave the example of the spilled for sprinkle that still works within the context there. That's why, it was okay to Daniel. He didn't notice, he didn't go back and self-correct there, it just.
So you could add more based exactly like what you're saying here. Everybody in here could use your own knowledge base to beef that up. Again, I think I wrote way too much because I know I went way over my 300 words and I probably got dinged for that. So, again, don't do as I say, not as I do. And there's a second strong response there that we're getting to the end of our time together. And do you tell me how you feel about what we've done today? If it's been helpful or
I particularly like this open response. I really like
So
that.
so I have links. The ones that are on your handout are the same ones that are on the School of Ed page there. You also can find, and if you've got your computer out, you can probably find it quickly. There are North Carolina practice tests too that look just like this one with the Massachusetts one. I haven't captured all of that on a link to share with you because this one's all been scanned in. By all means, use that practice test too. It's going to look like the Massachusetts one that I shared with you today.
And there's a book that you can get on that's for to study. It's a study guide for the North Carolina.
Have you looked at that one? Was it
I
helpful?
have one of the
Because one that I have
teachers,
was not helpful.
One of the beginners teachers that I met when I was doing the training at Cumberland County, she told me that she passed the first time she took the test, and the only thing she used to study was the study guide.
What's the name?
It's North Carolina Foundation of Reading Study Guide. You find it like that in Amazon, and it has flashcards.
Okay.
And there's one for the general curriculum that includes math and science and history.
Okay, that's good to know. I have one that was purchased for me by the department that's supposed to be some kind of a prep
It is the
manual,
only
and it
study
was
guide
horrible.
aside from what the Pearson website has available for North Carolina.
Okay. Use whatever you find that seems helpful, but at the same time, don't let it send you too far off into other things. For example, this manual that I have, it gives very long, detailed descriptions of every kind of term, and it's too much. Like if you were to study that, you would be so overwhelmed and you would be burned out and you're like, I can't deal with this. And even for me, like, put that back on the shelf. So make studying at least, somewhat manageable for yourself by not getting too far into extra things. I don't do well with flashcards. Some people do, but and some of these materials out there have links to like where you can make flashcards. This doesn't seem like the kind of test that flashcards are going to help me with, because it's not just a one-to-one. This is the answer. I memorized the answer. Now I spit it back. You have to use a lot of creative thinking with some of these questions. So this is back on the site that you registered with. They have a link here
listed in
for
there.
prep
Not
materials.
getting confused by those.
Right.
So that you can.
So, you might, I did not use any of these, and I can't really tell you why, maybe I just wasn't aware that they were there. But by all means, look at what's up here for prep materials. There are sample questions, there's a practice test. Just click on that. There we go. Select a test, foundations of reading.
Yeah, I think that's the one, the practice test that I took. That
Oh, does it look familiar?
Yes.
The only question I was comparing, I have it right here. I was comparing it when you were going over the one
Okay,
from
good.
Massachusetts. Only number one was the same. The rest of the questions were different.
The questions won't be the same,
yeah.
but it'll be the same kind of question. I mean, maybe you'll get a feel for that.
Yeah, it was.
That's
Yeah.
not, and I put it all in the bag.
So let's go all the way down to the.
But it's the same.
Those are
same
the
passage.
Oh, the same passage.
Yeah, the same.
Daniel
Open
and
it, because I remember using those, reading those.
So that's actually, I hadn't looked at that, but that's reassuring to know that my Massachusetts one is.
It's very similar.
I'm sure all they did is just slap
But
it
I
to
think
state
they
on it.
changed that because at the beginning when I took this workshops with Kent University, the test, the sample test was still, there was only the practice test for Massachusetts. And like the history and social studies questions were related to Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So I think that now they're not related to Massachusetts.
Yeah,
but they're
they've had to
related,
broaden it
related
out.
to North Carolina.
But here again, study process will be the same, so if you want to give yourself extra ammunition, and if you can print out a 69-page document, I don't know who has that luxury anymore, but print this one out and give yourself another practice test to work from.
and the terms that you in the beginning, those were from the Go.
That was from the
website.
Go Math, yeah.
Okay.
That was the
Freddie,
Intel.
I think that's the big
Quizlet has all the definitions for those
North
terms too.
Carolina
You can
Applications
just
of Reading,
Google
General
right on
Curriculum.
Quizlet, the North Carolina Foundation exam, and it
Okay,
will
good.
bring all those vocabulary words.
All of it is the same.
And I have my friend that came last Saturday, that MTEL app that helps you review, it has quizzes, it has vocabulary words, and all those terms are in there.
Okay. And there, again, if you go to the elementary ed, that test prep section, everybody who's doing these workshops has added some links in there. I know where my few things are, but those links are getting updated every once in a while, so whether it's this test or the other one, use those resources. What else? Anything else that you're burning to ask about, or? You guys, you've been the greatest session. It's great that they're videotaped. You could have been a better one.
I have a PowerPoint presentation that the professor from Temple University sent us for Foundations of Reading.
Oh, really? Okay.
I can forward you that.
Is
and
it
you can
something
forward
that
it to them.
we have liberty to share?
Because it's like Foundations of Reading, like for North Carolina,
Okay.
based on our standards.
Okay, yeah, if you,
Yes, I'm gonna look for the email.
I did not put my email on this yellow sheet, but it's Claudia.Nicholson.
Hold on.
Here, I'll write it on. Claudia.Nicholson, and that's Nicholson with a K, N-I-C-K-O-L-S-O-N at uncp.edu. So, if you have questions for me, or any other resources that you've used that you want me to be able to share, please feel free to do that.
It's a huge PowerPoint, but it has a lot of good explanations and examples of all the different terminologies. And I know it's somewhere in the North Carolina Department of Construction, Public Instruction, I don't know how to access that one.
And just the final couple of things that are on here, again, I have links to what you should study and how to find those. There's also a video that, I don't use time during the session, but it's a video about how to study, managing test anxiety, and then the last link is how to find out your scores, which is at that same North Carolina site.
No, thank you.
Good luck. Is anyone taking it like within the next couple of weeks here? Well, good luck to all of you.
Thank you. I was gonna wait.
Thoughts and prayers.
Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you
time.
all for being here today. Let's all go to Chick-fil-A.
They said.
I'm gonna find out. I'm a Access girl that I know just took hers, but she took hers. No.
I don't know if it's true because I haven't done it yet, but over the summer when I did training, I did that one.